In the dead of night on December 21st, 1985, something unexplainable unfolded in a quiet English village. Residents of the small town of Borley reported flickering lights in the abandoned rectory, a building long rumored to be haunted. But this was no ordinary ghost story. Witnesses claimed to see phantom carriages rolling through the mist, their horses spectral and silent, while others swore they heard the agonized whispers of unseen figures. Even more chilling, these accounts weren't isolated. For decades, Borley Rectory was dubbed the most haunted house in England, its mysteries debated by skeptics and believers alike. And yet no one has ever been able to prove or fully dismiss what truly happened there. This is just one of countless paranormal riddles woven into history's fabric, where the line between fact and folklore blurs into the unknown. That lingering question, what if, is what binds every story we're about to explore. From vanished civilizations whispering through ancient ruins to eerie encounters etched into war records, history isn't just about the events we can explain. It's also about the ones that defy logic, leaving even experts scratching their heads. Think of the chilling Dyatlov Pass incident, where 9 experienced hikers fled their tents into sub-zero temperatures, their bodies found with injuries that still make no sense. Or the haunting tale of the Mary Celeste, a ship discovered drifting in 1872. Its crew vanished without a trace, no signs of struggle, no clues, just silence. These aren't campfire stories, they're real-world puzzles that challenge everything we think we know. So what do we make of these enigmas? That's where the intrigue deepens. For every theory, scientific, supernatural, or downright bizarre, there's a counter-argument just as compelling, and that's exactly what we'll uncover together. Over the next 25 accounts, we'll revisit history's most baffling moments, examining the evidence, the legends, and the questions that still keep researchers up at night. Some might send shivers down your spine, others will make you question reality itself, but one thing's certain, by the end you'll see the past and its shadows in a whole new light. Ready to step into the unknown? Let's begin. In the sweltering summer of 1518, the streets of Strasbourg became the stage for one of history's most baffling spectacles. It began with a single woman, Frau Trophia, stepping into the square, her body suddenly seized by an uncontrollable need to dance. Within days, her frenzied movements spread like wildfire. Dozens, then hundreds, joined her, their limbs twisting and jerking for days on end, their feet bleeding, their bodies collapsing from exhaustion, yet still they danced. Eyewitnesses described it as if an invisible force had taken hold of them, a compulsion so powerful that even when authorities tried to stop it by commandeering guild halls and hiring musicians to dance the fever out, the madness only grew. What could explain such a phenomenon? Some historians point to mass psychogenic illness, a sort of collective hysteria sparked by the stresses of famine, disease, and superstition in medieval Europe. Others whisper of ergot poisoning, a mold on rye bread that can cause hallucinations and spasms. But then there are the darker theories, curses, demonic possession, or even divine punishment. The truth, no one knows for certain. The dancing plague remains a macabre puzzle, a moment when the line between biology and belief dissolved into chaos. What makes this event so chilling isn't just the mystery, it's the haunting humanity of it. These weren't characters in a folktale, they were real people trapped in a nightmare they couldn't understand. Their suffering echoes through the centuries, a reminder of how fragile our grasp on reality can be. And perhaps that's the most unsettling question of all. If it happened then, could it happen again? On the morning of June 30th, 1908, a blinding light tore across the sky over Siberia, so intense it rivaled the sun. Moments later, a shockwave ripped through the remote Tunguska region with the force of 1,000 atomic bombs, flattening 80 million trees across 800 square miles. Eyewitnesses hundreds of miles away described a fireball that sent people stumbling to the ground, shattered windows and scorched the landscape in an instant. Reindeer herds were reduced to ashes. The explosion registered on seismic stations as far away as England. And yet when scientists finally reached the site 19 years later, they found no crater, no meteorite fragments, nothing to explain the devastation. It was as if the sky itself had detonated. So what caused this apocalyptic event? The leading theory points to a meteor or comet exploding midair, its shock wave acting like a cosmic sledgehammer. But here's where it gets strange. No traces of extraterrestrial material were found in the soil. This absence fuels wilder theories, like a chunk of antimatter colliding with Earth, annihilating itself on contact. Others suggest a secret weapons test gone wrong. Did Nikola Tesla's energy experiments accidentally unleash something catastrophic? Or could it have been a black hole passing through our planet, leaving no physical evidence behind? The truth remains as elusive as the event was destructive. Tunguska stands as a chilling reminder of how vulnerable we are to forces beyond our understanding. One thing's certain: if a similar explosion happened today over a populated area, the consequences would be unthinkable. The mystery endures not just in the scarred Siberian wilderness, but in the unsettling question it forces us to confront. What else might be lurking in the vast, uncharted darkness above us? One of history's strangest enigmas appeared not in some cursed castle or remote wilderness, but in the quiet, snowy countryside of Devon, England. On the night of February 8, 1855, something impossible left its mark. Residents woke to find a single trail of hoof-like footprints pressed deep into fresh snow, stretching over 100 miles across fields, rooftops, and even frozen rivers. The prints were small, cloven, and spaced as if whatever made them moved in a straight, relentless line, undeterred by walls or locked doors. Panic spread like wildfire. Locals whispered of the devil himself pacing the countryside, while newspapers scrambled for answers. Even hardened skeptics couldn't ignore the sheer scale of it. Scientists threw themselves at the mystery, proposing everything from escaped kangaroos to experimental balloons dangling chains, but none of these theories held up. The prints appeared in places no animal could reach, like the middle of enclosed courtyards or atop sheer rooftops. The spacing between them defied the gait of any known creature. And perhaps most baffling of all, the trail showed no signs of backtracking or hesitation, as if whatever left them moved with eerie, single-minded purpose. What makes the devil's footprints especially unsettling isn't just the lack of an explanation, it's how abruptly the phenomenon ended. After that one night, the tracks never appeared again. No follow-up sightings, no similar incidents, just silence. Was it a prank, a misidentified natural phenomenon, or something far older, something that walked the earth long before science could name it? The people of Devon never forgot. To this day, those phantom hoofprints remain a ghostly footnote in history, a riddle written in snow that vanished with the morning sun. The forests of rural Tennessee seemed peaceful in 1817 until the Bell family's quiet farm became ground zero for one of America's most infamous hauntings. It began with knocking sounds in the walls, then escalated to unseen hands yanking bedding off terrified children, disembodied whispers calling family members by name, and even physical attacks that left John Bell himself bedridden with mysterious injuries. But what chilled witnesses most was the entity's voice, a rasping, wheezing specter calling itself Kate, who held sprawling conversations with visitors, quoted sermons verbatim, and once allegedly cursed John Bell to his death. Even Andrew Jackson, the future president, reportedly fled the farm after his camping gear was hurled into darkness by invisible forces, declaring, "I'd rather fight the British Army than deal with this witch." Fast forward 160 years, and a strikingly similar nightmare unfolded in a cramped London council house. The Enfield Poltergeist case of 1977 gripped Britain with its bizarre phenomena: levitating children, furniture sliding across floors, and a gruff, elderly voice emanating from 11-year-old Janet Hodgson's throat captured on tape by baffled journalists. Skeptics cried hoax, pointing to the sisters occasionally being caught bending spoons themselves. But even hardened investigators admitted some incidents defied explanation, like witnesses seeing chairs flip unaided or projectiles changing direction midair. What binds these cases across centuries? Both featured overwhelming witness testimony, physical evidence, and eerie vocal phenomena, yet skepticism lingers. Modern analysts suggest the bell, which may have been an elaborate revenge plot by a neighbor, while psychologists propose the Enfield events as textbook mass hysteria. But then there are the details that refuse to fit. How did Kate predict future events with unsettling accuracy? Why did Enfield's phenomena continue when the girls were under 24-hour surveillance? These hauntings force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the evidence is too persistent to dismiss, yet too bizarre to fully believe. Perhaps that's why, long after the final knocks faded, both stories continue to haunt not just the places they occurred, but our very understanding of reality itself. Deep in Russia's Ural Mountains, a lone tent sat shredded from the inside out, its flaps fluttering in the sub-zero wind like a ghostly flag. It was February 2nd, 1959, and the 9 hikers who'd pitched it had vanished into the snow, leaving behind a scene that would haunt investigators for decades. The Dyatlov Pass incident isn't just a tragedy, it's a forensic nightmare. When search teams finally found the bodies scattered across the mountainside, the clues made no sense. Some victims had fractured skulls and ribs as if crushed by immense force, yet no signs of a struggle. One woman was missing her tongue. Their clothing carried traces of radiation. And strangest of all, their tent had been slashed open from within, as if they'd fled in terror from something already inside with them. Theories spiral as wildly as the blizzards that night. Soviet authorities hastily closed the case, labeling it a compelling natural force, but the gaps in their report fueled darker speculation. Did a secret military experiment go wrong? Avalanche survivors don't typically have internal injuries without external trauma, but victims of shockwaves from distant explosions do. Then there's the radiation. Was there a covert nuclear test in the Urals that night? Or consider the indigenous Mansi people's warnings about the area's evil spirits. Some point to the hikers' own camera, which captured eerie orbs of light in their final photos. Could those be plasma phenomena from an atmospheric weapon, or something far older and more inexplicable? What chills researchers most isn't the violence, but the calculated way events unfolded. These were expert mountaineers who'd survived harsh conditions before. Yet something made them slice through their only shelter to flee into -22-degree weather barefoot, half-dressed and utterly desperate. Footprints showed they walked calmly at first, then ran in terror. Some bodies were found clustered together, as if trying to share warmth. Others seemed to crawl back toward the tent before collapsing. No wildlife disturbed the scene. No weapons were involved, just 9 lives snuffed out by a force we still can't name. The Dyatlov Pass incident endures because it defies categorization. It's not quite a murder, not quite an accident, and too meticulously strange to dismiss as folklore. Modern simulations suggest a rare katabatic wind could explain the tent's collapse, but what about the injuries? The radiation, that missing tongue, every supposed answer unravels at the edges, leaving us with the same uneasy question. What could terrify experienced hikers so deeply that they'd choose certain frostbite over whatever waited in that tent? Maybe some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only remembered, like the fading echoes of those 9 voices swallowed by the snow. In the summer of 1947, amidst the vast stillness of the Pacific Ocean, a chilling distress call crackled across the radio waves. All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chartroom and bridge, possibly whole crew dead. Then, after a pause, a final, haunting whisper, "I die." The source, the SS Ourang Medan, a Dutch merchant vessel that would soon become maritime legend. When rescuers reached the ship, they found a scene straight from a nightmare. The crew sprawled across the deck, their faces frozen in expressions of sheer terror, eyes wide and mouths gaping as if their final moments had been filled with unimaginable horror. Stranger still, no visible wounds, no signs of struggle, not a single survivor to explain what had transpired. Even the ship's dog lay dead, teeth bared in a permanent snarl. Then, as if the sea itself wanted to erase the mystery, smoke began billowing from below decks. The rescue team barely escaped before the Ourang Medan exploded, sinking into the depths and taking its secrets with it. So what could have caused such a catastrophe? Naval investigators were stumped. Some pointed to carbon monoxide poisoning from faulty ventilation, but why would that leave victims with expressions of terror? Others theorized a leak of nerve gas left over from World War II, remnants of some forgotten chemical weapon, but the most unsettling explanations reach far beyond conventional science. Sailors in the region spoke of green fireballs in the sky around that time, fueling theories of extraterrestrial interference. Could the crew have encountered something not of this world? Even the US Navy's own records show unexplained radar contacts in the area during that period, though they've never been officially linked to the tragedy. Then there's the skeptic's angle. Was the Ourang Medan even real? Some researchers argue the whole incident was an elaborate hoax, noting inconsistencies in ship registries and the lack of a definitive wreck. Yet too many first-hand accounts from other vessels describe that eerie distress call. Whether fact or folklore, the story endures because it taps into our deepest fears: the isolation of the open ocean, the vulnerability of being utterly alone when something goes terribly wrong. The Ourang Medan serves as a grim reminder that even in our modern age, the sea keeps its secrets well. And sometimes the most terrifying answer is the simplest one. We may never know what truly happened aboard that cursed ship. The skies over Point Pleasant, West Virginia, grew heavy with dread in the autumn of 1966. It started with fleeting glimpses, a towering, winged figure with glowing red eyes spotted near an abandoned munitions plant. Then came the encounters. Drivers swerved off roads as the creature swooped at their windshields. Witnesses described unnatural speed, a wingspan stretching over 10 feet, and an eerie silence despite its massive size. Locals called it Mothman, and its appearances seemed to herald something far darker. By December 15th, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, killing 46 people. To this day, survivors swear Mothman was seen perched on the bridge's framework just before it crumbled. Half a continent away and 19 years earlier, Los Angeles awoke to a horror that would stain its history. On January 15, 1947, a young woman named Elizabeth Short, dubbed the Black Dahlia by the press, was found bisected in a vacant lot, her body drained of blood and arranged with chilling precision. The brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned detectives, but here's where the threads tangle. Both tragedies became magnets for occult speculation. Witnesses near Point Pleasant reported strange men in black interrogating them about Mothman sightings, while Dahlia investigators found scrawled occult symbols in Short's address book. Some theorists suggest both events were tied to the same shadowy undercurrent, a convergence of violence and the supernatural. What binds these nightmares across time and space? Consider the prophetic angle. Mothman's appearances weren't random. They clustered before disasters, as if the creature was a harbinger of doom. Similarly, Short's murder coincided with a surge of post-war occult activity in LA, with rumors of ritualistic killings and black magic circles. Even the timing feels eerie. Both cases peaked during the winter solstice, a period long associated with thin veils between worlds. Skeptics dismiss these connections as coincidence, but the patterns persist. Was Mothman a warning, a literal omen of the bridge's collapse? Did Short stumble into something far older and more sinister than a single killer? The most unsettling theory. That both events were part of something larger. Paranormal researcher John Keel, who documented the Mothman sightings, believed these phenomena were ultra-terrestrial, not aliens or ghosts, but entities that manipulate human perception, feeding on fear and chaos. Could the Dahlia murder, with its theatrical cruelty, have been another form of this manipulation? The truth may be forever out of reach, but one thing's certain: these cases remind us that some horrors defy categorization. Whether you see them as twisted coincidences or pieces of a darker puzzle, they force us to question what else might be lurking just beyond the edges of our understanding. On August 15, 1977, a massive radio telescope at Ohio State University picked up a signal so extraordinary, an astronomer scrawled, "Wow," in the margin of its printout, and ignited a mystery that still captivates scientists today. The signal lasted 72 seconds, blasting through the hydrogen frequency band at 50 times the background noise, with characteristics that screamed artificial origin. It came from the constellation Sagittarius, near a star cluster 180 light-years away, and its intensity spiked and faded exactly as expected if it were a transmission sweeping past Earth from deep space. Most compelling, the signal matched the predicted fingerprint of an interstellar beacon almost perfectly. Decades later, the WOW signal remains SETI best candidate for alien contact, yet no follow-up detection has ever replicated it. Modern analysis suggests if it was extraterrestrial, the source would require a transmitter 2 million times more powerful than anything on Earth. Some argue it could have been a reflected human signal, perhaps bouncing off space debris, but the frequency used was supposedly protected for astronomy, making terrestrial interference unlikely. Others propose exotic natural explanations, like a comet's hydrogen cloud emitting radiation by chance. The problem, the specific comet often blamed, wasn't even in the telescope's field of view that night. What makes this event unforgettable isn't just the science, it's the emotional punch. That scribbled "wow" captures the raw hope and frustration of the search for cosmic neighbors. Here was a fleeting whisper that said, "You're not alone," only to vanish like smoke. The signal's brevity fuels its mystery. Was it a one-time alien broadcast we barely caught? A glitch in the cosmos mimicking intelligence, or something even stranger? Projects like Breakthrough Listen still scan that patch of sky, hoping for a repeat. Until then, those 72 seconds linger as astronomy's most tantalizing mabe. Imagine lying awake night after night, a relentless droning vibration pulsing through your skull, a sound no one else seems to hear. This isn't science fiction. For decades, residents of Taos, New Mexico, have reported exactly that, an eerie, low-frequency hum with no discernible source. It first gained widespread attention in the early 1990s when dozens of locals complained of the same inexplicable noise, described as everything from a distant diesel engine idling to the ominous thrum of a subterranean machine. Investigations followed, with teams from prestigious institutions like the University of New Mexico and even the national laboratories sweeping the area with sensitive equipment. Yet the culprit remained frustratingly elusive. No industrial activity, no geological anomalies, no hidden military experiments could explain it. The Taos hum became one of modernity's great acoustic mysteries. But here's where it gets even stranger. Taos isn't alone. Similar hum phenomena have cropped up from Bristol, England to Bondi, Australia, with eerie consistency. In Windsor, Ontario, residents filed lawsuits over a noise that disrupted sleep for years. In Kokomo, Indiana, engineers traced their hum to industrial fans, yet even after the fans were silenced, reports continued. What binds these cases together is their selective nature. Only about 2% of any given population can hear these sounds, leading to theories that the hum isn't external at all, but a neurological glitch. Some researchers point to spontaneous autocaustic emissions, sounds generated by the inner ear itself, while others suggest the hum could be a form of tinnitus amplified by hyper-awareness. Brain scans of hearers sometimes show heightened activity in regions linked to auditory processing, as if their minds are tuning into frequencies others unconsciously filter out. Yet the mystery deepens when you consider the outliers. In Taos, some hearers report physical vibrations, objects rattling on shelves, floors trembling beneath their feet, phenomena that can't be explained by brain chemistry alone. This has fueled more speculative theories, from secret government experiments with infrasound weapons to piezoelectric effects caused by shifting tectonic plates. Then there's the wild card. Ancient indigenous stories from the Taos Pueblo speak of spirit drums heard before great upheavals, hinting that the hum might predate modern record-keeping by centuries. What makes the Taos hum so compelling is its resistance to easy categorization. It exists at the intersection of environmental science, neurology, and folklore, defying each discipline to claim it entirely. For those who hear it, the hum is an inescapable reality, a private torment that oscillates between fascination and frustration. Scientists continue to monitor these phenomena, but perhaps the most haunting question isn't about the hum's origin, it's why some of us are programmed to hear the world's hidden frequencies, while others remain forever deaf to its whispers. Hidden away in a vault at Yale University lies a book no one has ever read, not because it's forbidden, but because no one on Earth understands its language. The Voynich Manuscript, a 240-page parchment dating back to the 15th century, is history's most stubborn enigma. Its pages crawl with looping, alien script accompanying bizarre botanical illustrations, plants with bulbous roots that match no known species, women bathing in emerald green fluids, and astrological charts mapping celestial patterns that don't align with any recognized cosmology. Even the vellum itself whispers secrets. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438, yet its authorship and purpose remain utterly opaque. What makes this artifact so mesmerizing isn't just its undecipherable text, it's how perfectly it resists explanation. Cryptographers from both world wars, including teams that cracked Nazi codes, have failed to find patterns consistent with any known cipher. Linguists confirm the writing follows grammatical rules, with word repetitions and sentence structures that suggest a real language, not random gibberish. Yet every attempted translation collapses into incoherence. Some argue it's an elaborate cipher, perhaps a lost Renaissance-era intellectual game. Others propose it's glossolalia, a stream of unconscious symbols penned by someone in a trance state. Then there's the most tantalizing theory, that it's a relic of a completely unknown culture or even something not of this world. The illustrations deepen the mystery. Herbal sections depict flora with twisted stems and leaves that seem almost biomechanical, as if the artist was sketching from imagination or recording species from another realm. Astronomical diagrams show spiral nebulae centuries before telescopes could confirm their existence. One section, dubbed biological, features nude women connected by tubes to strange machinery, evoking imagery that feels startlingly modern. Could these be metaphors for alchemical processes, or were they glimpses of advanced knowledge lost to time? Skeptics counter that the manuscript might be an ambitious hoax crafted to dupe a wealthy patron. After all, Renaissance Europe brimmed with esoteric texts and mystical frauds. Yet the hoax theory stumbles on one key point: the sheer, obsessive consistency of the work. Every page is densely packed with text and imagery, showing no corrections or hesitations. Creating such a volume would have required years of labor for no clear payoff, unlikely for a con artist seeking quick coin. Modern technology has only magnified the puzzle. AI analysis in 2019 suggested the text might encode Hebrew when rearranged, but the results were inconclusive. Recent multispectral imaging revealed faint, faded writing beneath some illustrations, possibly a guide for the artist or another layer of cipher. Even the book's provenance is enigmatic. It surfaced in 1912 when rare book dealer Wilfred Voynich bought it from Jesuit archives, but its journey before then is shadowy. Some trace it to the court of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, an obsessive collector of the occult. The Voynich manuscript endures because it taunts our hunger for answers. It's a locked door standing at the crossroads of art, science, and the supernatural, refusing to yield its truth. Whether it's a lost language, an elaborate riddle, or evidence of something beyond our understanding, one thing's certain: until that code cracks, it remains the ultimate literary ghost, a story screaming to be read yet forever silent. Christmas Eve 1945 should have been a night of warmth and laughter for the Sodder family in Fayetteville, West Virginia. But as their house burned in a sudden, inexplicable blaze, 5 of their children, Morris, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, vanished without a trace. Firefighters arrived to find the fire strangely contained, the bodies oddly absent, and the family's ladder suspiciously moved away from the house. The parents clung to haunting possibilities. Tire tracks led into the woods. A neighbor reported seeing the children peering from a passing car, and threats had allegedly been made against the family because of George Sodder's anti-fascist views. For decades, the Sodders plastered billboards with their children's photos, begging for answers that never came. Were they kidnapped? Did they perish in the fire despite the lack of remains? Or did something far more sinister unfold that winter night? Across the Atlantic, another mystery unfolded under equally eerie circumstances. On December 26, 1900, a supply ship arrived at the Flannan Isles lighthouse off Scotland's coast, only to find the tower deserted. The keepers Thomas Marshall, James Jucat, and Donald MacArthur had vanished without a trace. The lighthouse door was unlocked, the beds unmade, and a single chair lay toppled as if someone had risen in haste. Most chilling of all, the last log entry described brutal winds and a storm none of the nearby islands had experienced. Marshall's final words were frantic: "Storm ended, sea calm." God is over all, then silence. What binds these two tragedies across decades and oceans? First, the unsettling lack of closure. Both cases offer just enough clues to torment the Sodders' moved ladder, the lighthouse's cryptic log, but no definitive resolution. Then there's the role of isolation. The Flannan Isles keepers were days from help, while the Sodders lived in a rural area where a crime could have gone unnoticed. But perhaps most haunting is the human element. The Sodders spent their lives pleading for justice, while the lighthouse log's final words suggest either delirium or a desperate prayer. Skeptics argue the keepers were swept away by a rogue wave, yet why was one set of rain gear still inside? As for the Sodders, some claim the children perished in the fire, their remains destroyed by an accelerant, but why did no teeth survive when dental fragments typically withstand even intense heat? Both mysteries force us to confront how thin the line is between tragedy and conspiracy, between the explainable and the unfathomable. The lighthouse still stands, its beam cutting through the same mist that swallowed 3 men. The Sodder house is long gone, but the children's faces stare back from aged posters frozen in time. These aren't just cold cases, they're wounds that refuse to heal, stories where the final chapters were ripped away. And that's what lingers, not just the questions, but the weight of all those unanswered whispers in the dark. In the midst of World War II's brutal naval battles, whispers began circulating about a top-secret military project so bizarre, it seemed ripped from the pages of science fiction. According to legend, in October 1943, the U.S. Navy attempted to render the USS Eldridge, a Cannon-class destroyer escort, completely invisible to enemy radar. But the experiment allegedly went catastrophically wrong, with reports of the ship briefly vanishing from sight, teleporting hundreds of miles in an instant, and even fusing crew members' bodies with the ship's metal hull. The so-called Philadelphia experiment has since become the ultimate conspiracy stew, a mix of cutting-edge science, Cold War paranoia, and outright urban legend. But where does fact end and fiction begin? At the heart of the story is a kernel of plausible secrecy. The Navy was indeed researching radar invisibility using electromagnetic fields, a project dubbed Project Rainbow. Declassified documents confirm experiments with degaussing, a technique to reduce a ship's magnetic signature and avoid triggering underwater mines. But the leap from degaussing to teleportation hinges on the testimony of a single man, Carl Meredith Allen, better known by his pseudonym Carlos Allende. In the 1950s, Allende sent rambling letters to astronomer Morris Jessup, claiming he'd witnessed the Eldridge's disappearance firsthand while aboard another ship, the SS Andrew Furuseth. His accounts were riddled with inconsistencies, references to Einstein's unified field theory, which didn't exist in finished form, and lurid details of sailors stuck in bulkheads. Yet his story spread like wildfire, fueled by Cold War anxieties about government secrecy. Skeptics quickly dismantled the myth. Crew rosters proved Allende was never aboard the Furuseth during the Eldridge's alleged disappearance. Naval records showed the Eldridge was docked in New York on the date in question, nowhere near Philadelphia. Even the science falters Einstein's theories, while revolutionary, don't suggest teleportation is possible via electromagnetic fields. So why does the legend persist? Part of its staying power lies in the era's zeitgeist. The 40s and 50s saw rapid advancements in radar, nuclear physics, and rocketry, all shrouded in military secrecy. When paired with genuine projects like the Manhattan Experiment, the idea of a rogue invisibility test didn't seem so far-fetched. But there's a darker layer here: psychological warfare. Some researchers argue the Philadelphia experiment myth was deliberately seeded misinformation. During the Cold War, the U.S. and Soviet Union actively spread fantastical stories to mask real technological research. A tale about vanishing ships could have been designed to distract from actual radar-deflecting stealth projects. It's no coincidence that the myth resurged in the 1980s, just as the Navy was developing the first stealth ships. Even the Eldridge's name carries eerie symbolism. It evokes elder, a nod to electromagnetic research, while age mirrors ridge, a term used in early stealth design. The Philadelphia experiment endures because it taps into our deepest fears about unchecked science and government power. It's a cautionary tale wrapped in a conspiracy, a reminder that truth can be stranger and more malleable than fiction. Whether it's a case of mistaken identity, a hoax gone viral, or a smokescreen for real research, one thing's certain: the line between history and myth has never been thinner. And in that ambiguity, the legend finds its eternal fuel. Snow crunched underfoot as the Gruber family went about their evening chores on March 31, 1922, unaware they were living alongside a ghost or something far worse. The isolated Hinterkaifeck farm, nestled in the Bavarian woods, had been unsettled for days. Maid Katharina had quit just days earlier, terrified after hearing footsteps in the attic. The family had found strange footprints leading from the forest to the house, but none leading back. Even little Kazilia, just 7 years old, whispered about hearing noises in the walls. Then silence fell. When neighbors finally investigated the absence of smoke from the chimney, they uncovered a scene of almost theatrical horror. All 6 inhabitants lay slaughtered in the barn: parents Andreas and Kazilia Essar, their adult daughter Victoria, her 2 children, and the new maid. Each victim had been bludgeoned with a mattock, their bodies arranged with chilling precision. The killer hadn't fled either. Fresh footprints showed someone had stayed for days afterward, feeding the cattle, eating the family's food, even sleeping in their beds. Yet nothing of value was taken. The murderer seemed to savor their dominance, drawing out the horror long after the blood had dried. What elevates this case from tragic to uncanny are the layers of premonition. That abandoned maid's attic footsteps, investigators later found evidence someone had indeed been living there undetected: the strange prints in the snow. They matched no known suspect, Even the timeline defies logic. Some victims showed signs of surviving up to hours after the attack, suggesting the killer lingered, listening to their moans. Then there's Victoria's haunting final diary entry. If anything happens to us before the page was torn out, suspects range from Victoria's estranged husband, though he had an alibi, to a deranged neighbor seen smiling at the funeral. Some whisper of a transient worker seeking revenge for unpaid wages, while others point to a local priest whose cassock was found stained with blood. But the most chilling theory, that the killer was someone the family knew intimately. Their dog hadn't barked, no forced entry was found, and those careful arrangements of the bodies, it suggests not just rage but a grotesque familiarity. Hinterkaifeck's horror lingers because it weaponizes the ordinary. A creaking floorboard becomes an omen. A child's nightmare turns prophetic. The farm itself was so tainted by the event that authorities demolished it entirely, yet the case files remain open, waiting for a confession that never came. In the end, we're left with one unbearable truth. Sometimes monsters don't lurk in shadows. They sit at your table, feed your livestock, and leave you wondering right up until the last terrible moment, if you're truly alone in your own home. The Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly under the December sun in 1872, when the brigantine Mary Celeste was spotted adrift near the Azores, her sails half set, her hull perfectly seaworthy, but not a soul aboard. The scene aboard was more unsettling than any ghost ship cliché. A half-eaten meal sat abandoned in the galley. The captain's logbook lay open, its last entry mundane. Even the crew's personal belongings, pipes, sewing kits, a child's doll remained untouched. Only the ship's lifeboat was missing, along with all 10 people who'd been aboard just days earlier. No signs of struggle, no water damage, just silence. Piracy seems the obvious answer until you examine the details. The Mary Celeste's cargo, over 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, was intact, ruling out theft. The ship's valuables, including silverware and cash, were still in the captain's quarters. Even the crew's wages sat undisturbed. If attackers had boarded, why leave behind everything worth stealing? Then there's the condition of the vessel itself. The single lifeboat's absence suggests an orderly evacuation, but no storm could explain it, whether records show calm seas that week. And why would a seasoned captain like Benjamin Briggs, who'd brought his wife and toddler aboard, abandon ship without so much as a distress signal? This vacuum of logic has birthed wilder theories. Some point to the alcohol cargo. Could fumes have triggered an explosion scare, prompting a panicked exodus? Yet the barrels were found sealed with no evidence of leakage. Others propose a waterspout or underwater earthquake, but the ship's pristine state contradicts violent natural forces. Then there's the paranormal angle. The Mary Celeste was found in the Bermuda Triangle's eastern fringe, sparking theories of temporal rifts or dimensional vortices. Could the crew have glimpsed something that terrified them into fleeing, something not of this world? Sailors in the region later spoke of dead zones where compasses spun wildly, echoing reports from other vanished vessels. Perhaps most intriguing are the personal mysteries left behind. That child's doll belonged to 2-year-old Sophia Briggs, who'd been traveling with her parents. What could compel parents to bundle their infant into a lifeboat unless they believed the ship itself had become a death trap? The captain's log noted nothing unusual, yet the ship's chronometer and navigation instruments were missing, as if someone planned to find their way back. The Mary Celeste's legend endures precisely because it resists every easy explanation. It's a Rorschach test of the unknown pirate attack, insurance fraud, alien abduction, each theory reflecting our own fears back at us. Modern forensics could likely solve it today, but in 1872, the ocean kept its secrets. All we're left with is that haunting image, a ship frozen in time, drifting under full sail, holding its breath as if waiting for its passengers to return. Off the fog-shrouded coast of Nova Scotia lies a small, unassuming island that has consumed fortunes and lives for over 200 years, all because of a single tantalizing hole in the ground. Oak Island's so-called money pit first drew treasure hunters in 1795, when local teens stumbled upon a curious depression in the earth, its sides lined with flagstones and its shaft laced with layers of oak logs at precise 10-foot intervals. With each attempt to excavate, the pit fought back. Flood tunnels designed by unknown engineers would fill the shaft with seawater, collapsing walls and swallowing equipment. Yet the clues only grew stranger. A stone tablet inscribed with cryptic symbols, fragments of parchment, even strands of gold chain teased from the depths. Theories spiral from pirate loot, perhaps Captain Kidd's hoard, to Shakespearean manuscripts hidden by Francis Bacon, or even the lost treasures of the Knights Templar. Modern expeditions armed with sonar and drilling rigs have mapped vast underground chambers, but the pit's ultimate secret remains locked away, guarded by engineering that feels centuries ahead of its time. Now picture another stretch of ocean where the rules of reality seem equally fragile: the Bermuda Triangle. This infamous zone between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda became legend after December 5, 1945, when Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers, vanished mid-training exercise. The final radio transmissions still haunt investigators. We can't be sure of our position. Everything looks wrong. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. A rescue plane sent to find them disappeared too. Sonar scans of the seafloor reveal no wreckage, no debris, just abyssal plains swallowing all traces. But Flight 19 wasn't the first. Hundreds of vessels and aircraft have dissolved into the triangle's blue void, from the freighter SS Cotopaxi in 1925 to the luxury yacht Witchcraft in 1967, which vanished while anchored just a mile offshore, its distress call insisting they'd hit something in calm seas. What binds these two mysteries across time and geography? Both defy conventional explanations through layers of deliberate design. Oak Island's flooding tunnels suggest human ingenuity, while the triangle's electromagnetic anomalies, compasses spinning wildly, instruments failing, hint at forces beyond our understanding. Yet in both cases, the truth may lie in the intersection of natural phenomena and human error. The money pit's booby traps could simply be ancient, forgotten drainage systems for early mines. The triangle's disappearances might stem from methane hydrate eruptions, sudden gas bubbles that lower water density, causing ships to sink like stones. But then there are the outliers: Oak Island's artificial coconut fiber found deep underground, or the triangle's cases where crews vanished from ships found still idling, meals left half-eaten. Perhaps the real power of these legends isn't in solving them, it's in how they mirror our deepest fears. The money pit taunts us with the possibility that treasure lies just beyond reach, while the triangle whispers that even our most advanced technology is no match for nature's caprice. Both serve as reminders that some corners of the world still laugh at our maps and blueprints, keeping their secrets buried under layers of water and time. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. After all, what's more human than chasing shadows, clinging to the hope that just beyond the next dive or sonar scan, the impossible might finally make sense? On a quiet August afternoon in 1966, two men in business suits lay side by side on a grassy hill in Rio de Janeiro, their bodies rigid, their faces covered with strange lead masks. When police arrived, they found more questions than clues. The men Miguel José Viana and Manuel Pereira da Cruz were electronic technicians, their pockets stuffed with cryptic notes. One scrap read, 1630 hours to be at the agreed location, 1830 hours to swallow the capsules. After the effect is produced, protect the metallic evidence until the signal. Most baffling of all, their eyes were shielded by those handcrafted masks, as if they'd been waiting for something only visible through filtered lenses. This wasn't some back alley crime scene. The men had traveled from their hometown with purpose, even purchasing raincoats despite clear skies, as if preparing for conditions only they anticipated. Autopsies revealed no trauma, only traces of a toxic substance in their systems. The notes spoke of capsules, yet no containers were found nearby. Then there were the symbols. One man carried a slip of paper reading N.S. God, possibly an abbreviation for Nossa Senhora Dogada, Our Lady of the Watch, a reference to a local Catholic shrine. But was this devotion or something darker? Theories spiral from the scientific to the surreal. Some investigators suspected ritual suicide tied to occult practices, pointing to the mask's resemblance to those used in certain esoteric traditions to block unholy visions. Others wondered if the men were part of a doomed experiment, perhaps attempting to contact extraterrestrials. Lead shields against radiation. Were they expecting some form of energy only visible through protected eyes? The timing adds another layer of strangeness. 1966 was peak global UFO hysteria, with Brazil itself experiencing a wave of sightings dubbed the Brazilian UFO Night just months earlier. Could these technicians have been chasing something they couldn't explain with ordinary tools? Skeptics offer a bleaker take. The men may have been poisoned by someone exploiting their fascination with the paranormal, their deaths staged to look like a mystical event. Yet the lack of struggle contradicts this. They lay peacefully, as if accepting their fate. Even the positioning feels intentional, heads tilted toward the sky, bodies aligned like compass needles. What lingers isn't just the mystery, but the eerie specificity of their preparations. Those raincoats, the precisely timed notes, the masks molded to fit only their faces. This wasn't random, it was a ritual with rules only they understood. Whether it was science, superstition, or something beyond our comprehension, the lead mask's case remains a haunting riddle written in symbols we still can't decipher. A reminder that some truths don't just hide in shadows, they vanish behind shields we weren't meant to remove. In March 1974, the Betts family was surveying fire damage on their Florida property when they stumbled upon an object that defied every law of physics they knew. Nestled in the charred underbrush was a polished metal sphere about 8 inches in diameter, perfectly smooth except for a small triangular emblem. At first, it seemed like a curious artifact, perhaps a piece of old machinery, but within days, the sphere began exhibiting behavior that would stump scientists for decades. It moved on its own, rolling across floors as if guided by invisible hands. It responded to sound, vibrating in tune with guitar strings, most unnerving of all. It seemed to have a mind of its own, changing direction abruptly as though evading capture, even returning to the family after they'd thrown it into the woods. When news of the Betts sphere reached the media, it sparked a frenzy. Reporters swarmed the family's home, capturing footage of the object's eerie motions. Scientists from the Navy and NASA scrambled to examine it, running tests that only deepened the mystery. X-rays revealed 2 smaller spheres inside, surrounded by what appeared to be a dense metallic liquid. The outer shell was composed of stainless steel, yet the sphere weighed far less than it should have for its size. Then there was the magnetism, or lack thereof. While it occasionally exhibited weak magnetic properties, these effects were inconsistent, flickering in and out like a dying bulb. Theories ricocheted from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some researchers suggested the sphere was part of a satellite or spacecraft, though no known technology matched its design. Others proposed it might be a highly advanced gyroscope, capable of self-propulsion through internal mechanisms. But the most tantalizing hypothesis, and the one that captured the public's imagination, was extraterrestrial origin. The sphere's apparent intelligence, its responsiveness to stimuli, and that cryptic triangle etched on its surface all hinted at something beyond human engineering. Even skeptics struggled to dismiss the accounts not just from the Betts family, but from technicians who witnessed the sphere's antics firsthand. Yet as quickly as the phenomenon began, it faded. After months of testing, the sphere's activity dwindled as if whatever force powered it had been depleted. NASA's final report was a masterclass in bureaucratic non-answers, stating only that the object's behavior was inconclusive and required further study, a dead end that left more questions than answers. The sphere eventually vanished from public view, its whereabouts unknown, its secrets intact. What makes the Bet sphere endure in paranormal lore isn't just its strangeness, but the chilling precision of its performance. This wasn't a blurry UFO sighting or a fleeting ghostly apparition. It was a tactile, measurable anomaly that interacted with its environment in documented ways. Whether it was a fragment of alien technology, a military experiment gone rogue, or an elaborate hoax, one truth remains. In the swamps of Florida, for a brief moment, the impossible rolled right into someone's living room and refused to behave. On a quiet November evening in 1987, Chicago viewers settling in for an episode of Doctor Who got far more than they bargained for. Mid-broadcast, the screen flickered violently, and suddenly, a distorted figure in a rubber mask hijacked the airwaves. For nearly 90 seconds, this eerie impersonator mimicked the stuttering digital persona of Max Headroom, glitching in and out between bursts of static while spouting nonsensical phrases like "your love is fading." The signal intrusion, still the only unsolved case of its kind in American television history, was equal parts absurd and unsettling, a prank that crossed into something darker by virtue of its sheer technical audacity. The mystery begins with how it happened at all. WGN and PBS affiliates were hit within hours of each other, suggesting the intruder had sophisticated knowledge of broadcast frequencies and transmitter locations. Yet their methods remain unclear. Was it a hacked satellite feed, a hijacked microwave link, or something even more brazen? The FCC's investigation hit dead ends, partly because the equipment needed for such an intrusion would have been bulky and conspicuous, requiring close proximity to broadcast towers. Whoever pulled this off knew exactly when engineers would be off duty, exploiting a window of vulnerability with precision. Then there's the bizarre performance itself. Behind the mask's uncanny grin, the figure gyrates to inaudible music, smacks himself with a fly swatter, and at one point drops his pants while a second person off-camera giggles. It feels like a Dadaist art piece until you notice the flashes of something more ominous. The distorted voice suddenly snarls, "Catch the wave," a phrase some link to mind control conspiracy theories of the era. Others dissect the audio's garbled layers, claiming hidden messages like references to Coca-Cola. Max Headroom was a corporate mascot for the brand. Even the timing feels symbolic. The hijack occurred during a sci-fi show about hacking and virtual reality, as if the intruder was commenting on media itself. Skeptics argue it was just a radio hobbyist's elaborate joke, but the unresolved details gnaw at that theory. No one's ever claimed responsibility, despite the stunt's notoriety in hacker circles. The costume, an expensive Max Headroom replica, wasn't commercially available, pointing to insider resources. And why risk felony charges for a bit that lasted less than 2 minutes? Some speculate it was a disgruntled broadcast employee, while others whisper of proto-anonymous activists testing media vulnerability years before cyberattacks became commonplace. What lingers isn't just the who or how, it's the why. In an age before viral stunts, this was a surreal preview of our fractured digital landscape, where signals we trust can be usurped by chaos at any moment. The intrusion sits in a legal gray zone too. No theft, no violence, just the queasy thrill of seeing the system momentarily hacked by forces that still, decades later, refuse to reveal themselves. Perhaps that's the real punchline. In a world now drowning in deepfakes and cyberattacks, the Max Headroom pirate remains a ghost in the machine, a reminder that even our most controlled systems have backdoors, and some shadows still know how to slip through. Nestled in Utah's Uinta Basin, Skinwalker Ranch isn't just a hotspot for UFO activity. It's a vortex where science, folklore, and the outright unexplainable collide. The land's history stretches back centuries, woven with Ute tribal warnings about a malevolent entity they called the Skinwalker, a shape-shifting spirit said to wield dark medicine. But things took a modern turn in the 1990s when billionaire Robert Bigelow's National Institute for Discovery Science acquired the property, stationing researchers who documented phenomena that defied physics. Phantom wolf-like creatures with glowing red eyes that vanished when shot, crop circles appearing overnight in impossible geometries, and even reported interdimensional portals shimmering above the scrubland. The Pentagon's later involvement through the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program only deepened the intrigue. Why would military intelligence care about a remote ranch? Some whisper it's because Skinwalker's anomalies aren't just legends, they're measurable. Now shift the scene to rural Kentucky, 1955, where the Sutton family's farmhouse became the stage for one of the most bizarre close encounters on record. It began with reports of a silver craft landing near their property, followed by hours of sheer terror as small, metallic creatures, later dubbed the Hopkinsville Goblins, besieged the home. Witnesses described them as 3 feet tall with oversized ears, glowing yellow eyes, and limbs that seemed to float rather than walk. Bullets fired at point-blank range had no effect. The creatures merely flipped backward and scuttled into the darkness, only to reappear at windows or peer down from the roof. By dawn, over a dozen people, including local police, had witnessed the entities. Yet when daylight came, the only evidence left was trampled grass and a lingering sense of violation. What makes these two cases so compelling isn't just their strangeness, it's how they reflect opposing sides of the paranormal coin. Skinwalker Ranch is a slow burn, a place where phenomena unfold over years, steeped in indigenous lore and military secrecy. Hopkinsville, by contrast, was a single night of chaotic terror, a flashbulb moment of panic with no deeper mythology, or so it seems. Dig deeper and you'll find eerie parallels. Both locations sit near significant water sources, Skinwalker by the Colorado Plateau's ancient aquifers, Hopkinsville near underground caves fueling theories about subterranean bases or interdimensional weak spots. Both events drew immediate government attention. The Air Force interviewed the Suttons within days, while Skinwalker became a pet project for agencies studying anomalous aerospace threats. Yet the contrasts are just as revealing. Skinwalker's phenomena are cerebral, almost predatory, a cat and mouse game with an intelligence that seems to study its observers. Hopkinsville's goblins, meanwhile, behaved like feral animals, driven by something between curiosity and aggression. Skeptics dismiss the Kentucky case as misidentified owls or mass hysteria, pointing to the creature's resemblance to circus posters from a traveling show that week. But try telling that to the Suttons, who abandoned their farm permanently after the attack. As for Skinwalker, even hard-nosed scientists admit the ranch emits electromagnetic pulses in patterns that match no known natural source. Perhaps the most unsettling thread connecting these stories is the suggestion that these phenomena aren't new, just newly recorded. The Ute Skinwalker legends predate Columbus, while old Kentucky newspapers recount similar, devilish imps plaguing settlers in the 1800s. Whether you see them as extraterrestrial visitations, undiscovered creatures, or something far older lurking in humanity's blind spots, one thing's clear: these aren't isolated incidents. They're glimpses of a pattern we're only beginning to trace, one where the line between monster and myth blurs under scrutiny. And that raises a chilling question. If these events are linked, what else might be waiting in the shadows just beyond the edge of our understanding? For decades, drivers in cities from Philadelphia to Buenos Aires have rolled over a mystery embedded in the asphalt: crude, hand-cut tiles bearing the same enigmatic message. Toynbee idea in Movie 2001, resurrect dead on planet Jupiter. These strange plaques, now known as the Toynbee tiles, first surfaced in the early 1980s, their origins as murky as their meaning. Carved into linoleum and pressed into streets during summer heat, they've melted into the urban landscape like warnings from some underground prophet. But who created them, and why would someone spend years embedding the same cryptic phrase across continents, often in dangerous midnight installations? The tiles read like a collision of conspiracy theory and avant-garde poetry. Toynbee likely refers to historian Arnold Toynbee, who theorized about societal rebirth, while Movie 2001 points to Kubrick's sci-fi masterpiece. Combine them and you get a manifesto urging humanity's resurrection on Jupiter, a concept as baffling as it is ambitious. Some tiles expand the message, accusing media giants and governments of suppressing this cosmic vision. Others, like the infamous "You Have Been Judged" tile found in Santiago, Chile, take on a darker, almost accusatory tone. The sheer scope is staggering, over 200 documented tiles spanning 15 U.S. states and 4 South American countries, all linked by identical materials and lettering styles. Theories about their creator spiral from the scholarly to the surreal. Early investigations pointed to a reclusive Philadelphia man named James Morasco, who allegedly believed Kubrick's film hid secret resurrection technology. But Morasco died in 1989, while tiles kept appearing into the 21st century, some even referencing events postdating his death. This fueled speculation about a network of devotees, a secret society etching its creed into the world's streets. Then there's the outsider art angle. The tiles' DIY aesthetic and guerrilla placements echo the work of underground artists like Banksy, blurring the line between activism and obsession. Perhaps most intriguing are the tiles' logistical mysteries. How did the creator or creators plant them so widely without detection? Some tiles appeared on busy highways, suggesting installation during split-second traffic lulls. Others featured complex designs requiring hours of work, yet no witnesses ever came forward. Even the materials defy explanation. Forensic analysis revealed the tiles contain layers of asphalt paper, linoleum, and even traces of car undercoating materials more common in auto repair than art. The Toynbee phenomenon took a surreal turn in 2013 when a new wave of tiles emerged, these times signed by Independent Movie, a possible splinter group. These newer plaques referenced contemporary politics and even included QR codes, dragging the decades-old mystery into the digital age. Yet despite internet sleuths and documentaries, the core question remains: is this an elaborate hoax, a coded distress signal from a lone visionary, or evidence of a belief system lurking in plain sight? What gives the Toynbee tiles their enduring power isn't just their strangeness, it's their tactile immediacy. Unlike online conspiracies or whispered legends, these are physical artifacts demanding to be acknowledged, literally beneath our tires and toes. They force us to confront how easily we ignore the extraordinary embedded in the everyday. So next time you're stuck in traffic, look down. That cracked patch of street might just be a fragment of a puzzle no one solved. A reminder that the most persistent mysteries aren't hidden in shadowy corners, but pressed into the surfaces we walk over without a second thought. The Toynbee tiles might seem like relics of a pre-digital age, carved laboriously by hand and pressed into pavement under cover of night, but their spirit lives on in today's viral mysteries. Take the explosion of alternate reality games, or ARG, where online communities dissect cryptic clues hidden in YouTube videos, social media posts, even real-world graffiti. Projects like This House Has People in It or The Sun Vanished Twitter thread mirror the tiles' blend of urgency and ambiguity, blurring the line between art, conspiracy, and interactive storytelling. Yet there's a crucial difference. Where ARGs are designed to be solved, the tiles resist resolution like a locked box with no key. This resistance to decoding raises darker questions. While ARGs often have corporate backing or creators who eventually step forward, the tile's anonymity feels more charged, less like a game, and more like a manifesto hurled into the void. Consider the Cicada 3301 puzzles, which recruited codebreakers through layers of encryption and real-world dead drops. Like the tiles, they demanded physical engagement with urban spaces, but Cicada's architects had a clear end-game: recruiting talent. The tiles, by contrast, offer no payoff, no community, just the chilling repetition of that same Jupiter-bound directive. It's the difference between a scavenger hunt and a scream in the dark. Then there's the matter of intent. Modern mysteries often court virality, but the tiles' creator went to absurd lengths to avoid attention. Planting them in moving traffic wasn't just risky, it was performative, a ritual of defiance against being seen. Compare that to the Survival Challenge ARG, where players tracked QR codes to win prizes, or even the Why Don't You Dance campaign, a marketing stunt disguised as a surreal street art project. The tiles reject commercial logic entirely. Their closest modern parallel might be Library Girl, a shadowy figure who leaves handwritten poems in library books, or the Satellite Stalker, who projects coded messages onto buildings. These outliers share the tiles' obsession with legacy over recognition, embedding fragments of themselves into the world's infrastructure. Yet for all their mystery, the tiles also feel strangely prophetic. In an era of deepfakes and AI-generated art, their handmade grit is a rebellion against the ephemeral. They're physical artifacts in a digital age, demanding you kneel on hot asphalt to trace their letters. That tangibility gives them weight beyond pixels, a permanence that outlasts their creator. Maybe that's the real message, not about Jupiter or resurrection, but about the human need to etch something into history, even if no one ever understands why. The tiles don't just haunt our streets, they haunt our impulse to solve, to categorize, to insist every riddle has an answer. Sometimes the most unsettling mysteries aren't those that can't be solved, but those that refuse to be solved at all. For every paranormal event we've explored, skeptics have offered plausible counterarguments, some convincing, others leaving glaring gaps. Take the dancing plague of Strasbourg. While ergot poisoning from moldy rye could explain the convulsions, historical records show no corresponding outbreak of the telltale symptoms: gangrenous limbs or burning sensations. Mass hysteria accounts for the collective mania, but why did it manifest as dancing, a behavior so specific authorities hired musicians to lean into it? Even psychology struggles to explain why the phenomenon abruptly stopped after months, as if someone flipped a switch. Then there's the Tunguska event. The leading meteor theory hinges on an airburst, yet no fragments were ever found, unlike the Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013. Which scattered debris across Russia. Infrasound from the explosion should have circled the globe multiple times, yet seismic records show inconsistencies in timing. And what of the strange luminescence reported worldwide for nights afterward? Scientists point to noctilucent clouds, but those typically form at higher altitudes than Tunguska's blast could reach. Even declassified Cold War documents fail to fully explain why Soviet expeditions were so secretive, fueling speculation they'd found something they weren't meant to share. The Devil's Footprints offer another puzzle. Skeptics propose hopping woodpeckers or escaped experimental balloons, but neither explains the prints' precise spacing or their appearance atop walls and roofs. A prankster would need supernatural stamina to carve a 100-mile trail in one night, especially in rural areas where no witnesses reported human activity. And while weather balloons existed in 1855, none match the description of devices capable of leaving such marks, the most telling hole in these theories. No one ever replicated the phenomenon despite countless attempts. Perhaps the starkest divide between skepticism and the unexplained lies in cases like the Dyatlov Pass incident. Modern simulations suggest katabatic winds, downward gusts reaching hurricane speeds, could have collapsed the tent, prompting the hikers' panicked escape. But how does that account for the missing tongue, the radiation traces, or the reports of glowing orbs seen by indigenous hunters that night? Even the wind theory has flaws. The tent's location was sheltered by terrain, and experienced mountaineers would have recognized wind sounds versus something more sinister. The Philadelphia experiment skeptics dismantled the myth with naval records and Einstein's confirmed timeline, but they can't explain why so many unrelated sailors independently reported strange electromagnetic phenomena aboard ships in the 1940s. Declassified documents confirm the Navy was testing degaussing, but why did those tests coincide with rumors of sailors developing psychological disorders after exposure? The military's own files reference unanticipated side effects, leaving just enough ambiguity to keep the legend alive. And what of Skinwalker Ranch? While psychologists attribute sightings to the power of suggestion fueled by Ute legends, that doesn't explain the radiation spikes or the mutilated livestock with surgical precision. The Pentagon's interest adds another layer. Why invest in studying mere folklore unless the data showed anomalies? Even the most hardened skeptics admit the ranch's electromagnetic readings defy conventional models, behaving more like intentional interference than natural fluctuations. This push and pull between skepticism and the unexplained is what keeps these mysteries alive. For every debunked detail, another resists dismissal. Scientific explanations often cover 80% of the facts. It's the stubborn 20% that lingers, whispering that maybe, just maybe, we haven't uncovered the full story yet. And that's the thrill of the paranormal. Not proving ghosts or aliens exist, but confronting the humbling truth that history's ledger still has pages we can't quite read. These stories don't just haunt history, they've seeped into our collective imagination, becoming the raw material for films, books, and legends that blur the line between fact and fiction. Take the Conjuring franchise, which transformed the real-life case files of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren into blockbuster horror. The Perron family's ordeal in the 1970s, with its disembodied whispers and spectral assaults, became the spine of the first film, but reality was stranger than Hollywood dared to depict. The actual Perrons reported phenomena the movies omitted, like their daughter sleepwalking in a blizzard while whispering in a dead woman's voice. Yet even the fictionalized version captured something essential: the terror of realizing your home isn't yours alone. Then there's Twin Peaks, David Lynch's surreal masterpiece, which wove elements of the Dyatlov Pass incident into its mythos. The show's eerie, large entities and cryptic symbols mirror the real-life hiker's final photos, where strange lights and distorted perspectives suggest something otherworldly intervened. Lynch never confirmed the connection, but fans have dissected the parallels, like the log lady's warnings about the woods holding secrets, echoing indigenous Mansi tales of the Kholat-Syakh Mountains being dead or cursed. Even the show's central mystery, a homecoming queen's brutal murder, draws from the unresolved violence of cases like Hinterkaifeck, where the farm's isolation amplified its horror. Literature, too, has mined these mysteries for inspiration. The Mary Celeste's ghostly abandonment birthed countless novels, from Arthur Conan Doyle's early speculative fiction to modern works like The Ghost Ship by Kate Moss, which reimagines the crew's fate through supernatural possession. Meanwhile, the Voynich manuscript's unreadable pages became a MacGuffin in the Book of Secrets and the Rule of Four, where fictional scholars raced to decode its secrets before shadowy organizations silenced them. These adaptations thrive on the same tantalizing gaps that define the original events, the spaces where history runs out and imagination rushes in. Folklore, though, might be the most fascinating evolution. The Mothman sightings of Point Pleasant spawned an entire legend cycle, from cautionary tales about red-eyed harbingers to annual festivals celebrating the creature as a quirky local mascot. In Japan, the Ourang Medan story mutated into Yumi no Yurei, or Ghosts of the Sea, a trope used in anime like another to symbolize inescapable maritime curses. Even Oak Island's treasure hunt has become a modern-day folktale, with reality shows and podcasts turning the pit into a metaphor for human obsession, the idea that just one more dig, one more clue, might finally reveal the truth. The power of these adaptations lies in their malleability. A story like The Philadelphia Experiment can be a sci-fi thriller, The Philadelphia Experiment, 1984, a government conspiracy warning declassified documentaries, or even a metaphor for existential dislocation, as seen in The Prestige, where Tesla's machines echo the experiment's themes of duplication and erasure. Each retelling refracts the original event through a new lens, proving that the best mysteries aren't just unsolved, they're infinitely renewable. Perhaps most telling is how these legends outlive their origins. The Betts sphere inspired everything from the X-Files episodes to indie horror games, while Skinwalker Ranch became shorthand for government-covered paranormal research in shows like Stranger Things. Even the Toynbee tiles, with their cryptic Jupiter manifesto, found their way into True Detective's murdery symbolism and Gravity Falls coded lore. These aren't just references, they're proof that certain stories embed themselves in our cultural DNA, mutating with each generation to reflect contemporary fears of technology, of the unknown, of the systems that might be hiding the truth from us. So why do these events resonate so deeply? Maybe it's because they're more than ghost stories, they're mirrors. The dancing plague becomes a parable about societal collapse. The Dyatlov Pass incident transforms into a warning about the arrogance of exploration, and the Max Headroom signal intrusion. In an age of deepfakes and AI, it feels less like a prank and more like a prophecy. These stories endure not because they scare us, but because they remind us that history is never truly closed, that every answer unlocks new questions, and every shadow might still be hiding something or someone. One of the most fascinating aspects of paranormal research is how often history's greatest mysteries echo in our own lives through personal encounters that never make headlines, yet carry the same spine-tingling weight. Like Sarah from Maine, who wrote to us about the farmhouse she inherited from her grandmother. For years, the family joked about Aunt Ruth's shadow, a dark figure that would glide down the hallway at midnight. But when Sarah moved in after grad school, the joke became unsettling reality. She described waking to the sound of a music box playing one that hadn't worked in decades, only to find it spinning on the dresser, its tune warped as if underwater. Then came the whispers, not the garbled static of sleep paralysis, but clear, urgent sentences in a voice she recognized from old home videos. "Check the wallpaper," it said. Behind a loose panel, she found letters dated 1942, revealing Aunt Ruth's secret engagement to a soldier who died at Normandy. "That house didn't feel haunted," Sarah wrote. "It felt like it was finally telling its secrets." Then there's Marcus in Texas, whose story starts with something deceptively ordinary, a vintage rotary phone in his apartment building's lobby. It hadn't worked since the 90s, according to the super, but one rainy night it rang. When Marcus picked up, the line crackled with a woman sobbing, begging someone named Danny to come home before the storm. The call cut out after 8 seconds. The next morning, he learned the building had been a boarding house in the 50s, where a young mother named Dolores waited 3 days for her son to return from a fishing trip, unaware his boat had capsized in a squall. The eerie part, Marcus's security cam captured the phone ringing but no sound, just his lips moving as he spoke into a dead receiver. These aren't campfire tales. They're first-hand accounts from people who never expected to brush against the unknown, like Priya, who swears her late golden retriever still visits on the anniversary of his passing. She sent us thermal images showing a faint, dog-shaped heat signature curling at the foot of her bed each December 12th. Or Javier, a night shift nurse who shared security footage from an empty pediatric ward, where a rocking chair moves for exactly 17 minutes every Halloween, mimicking the rhythm of a lullaby once hummed by a nurse who worked there in the 70s. What ties these stories together isn't just their strangeness, it's their intimacy. Unlike historical enigmas debated by experts, These moments unfolded in bedrooms and basements, witnessed by ordinary people with no agenda beyond understanding what happened to them. That's why we're dedicating an entire follow-up video to your experiences, because sometimes the most compelling evidence doesn't come from dusty archives or government files, but from the messages you've been sending us, each one a reminder that the line between the ordinary and the inexplicable is thinner than we think. And to those who haven't shared yet, keep those stories coming, because the next spine-tingling account, the one that makes us all pause and wonder, might be sitting in your inbox right now. Who knows, your submission could be the key to unraveling a mystery we didn't even know existed. From the phantom hoofprints of Devon to the silent screams of the Ourang Medan, these mysteries refuse to stay buried. Each one a reminder that history's ledger still holds pages we can't fully read. Think of the Dyatlov hikers fleeing their tent into certain death, or the Bet's sphere rolling with impossible purpose. Consider how the dancing plague's terror lingers in the echo of those bleeding feet, or how Skinwalker Ranch's shadows seem to watch back. These aren't just stories, they're fractures in reality, moments where the world as we know it flickers and something else peers through. Now it's your turn. Which of these 25 events chills you to the core? Was it the lead masked men's cryptic suicide, or the static-drenched terror of the Max Headroom hijack? Drop your vote in the comments. We'll tally the creepiest case for a deep dive follow-up. And for those hungry for more, hit subscribe. Part 2's already brewing, packed with viewer-submitted encounters that prove the paranormal isn't confined to history books. From attics whispering in dead relatives' voices to security cameras catching what shouldn't exist, the next chapter's stranger than fiction. The past may hold its secrets close, but the present, it's wide open, and the unknown is closer than you think.